Good afternoon and welcome to Kitty Talks. Today I have with me professional card magician, author, lecturer, entertainer, speaker and singing, Paul Gordon. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Kitty.
How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic, thank you. I'm very excited to share your story with my audience.
Oh, you're very kind, thank you.
Yeah, well, obviously you and I have known each other for a while, and so I've got to hear your exploits, travelling all over the world, performing, entertaining people. So tell us a bit more about what it is that you do.
Well, I'm a professional close-up magician specialising in card magic. That's what I've done for a living for many, many years. And I'm also an author. I write books on magic for other magicians. And I also do lectures for those magicians. And I teach them and I do workshops and so on. And I'm also a big band singer, which is something I used to do before the magic. And I do as a sideline here and there, as and when I can.
Fantastic.
Pretty busy, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And so whenever I think of magic, I always think of the Magic Circle. So are you a member of the Magic Circle?
I am indeed, yes. I've been a member for, I think, 25 years or something like that. Long time. I've also been a member of the Sussex Magic Circle, which is the local group based in Lewes. And I've been a member there for 41 years.
Wow. And is it like the Magic Circle to me always conjures up like Mason type scenario where you can't share the secrets, you know?
Yeah, it does a little bit, but it's not really like that. It's it has a feeling like that, but it's much more friendlier than it used to be. In the old days, it used to be kind of guys with bowler hats and briefcases, and these days it's much more relaxed.
Fantastic. So you meet on a regular basis, do you? Or?
Yeah, it's every Monday through the year. I mean, I don't go that often because it's up in London at Euston, and it's just a bit too far to keep going up there, especially on a cold, miserable, windy, wet day.
Yes, I can imagine. But I've also read on your bio that you have performed for quite a few celebrities as well.
I have, yes. Some of them a long time ago, but Matt Monro, the singer, he's been dead 30 years. Matt Monro and Cliff Richard. Oh, goodness me. Michael Palin, Greg Dyke. I don't know, so many people.
Wow. Fantastic. And so to actually make a career out of magic, for me, is really fascinating. You know, the whole point of Kitty Talks is to inspire people to make a difference on the planet by following their passion and purpose.
Yeah.
And, you know, it appears to be difficult, but, you know, I personally don't believe that. And so I love interviewing people such as yourself who have taken your passion and turned it into your life.
Well, I had a proper job for years working in the theatre business, in entertainment anyway. And I did that from when I was 15 years old. And when I was, I think, early 30s, so 20 odd years ago, I was made redundant. And I thought, what am I going to do? And I sat down and I did this. It's quite in those days, it wasn't well known, but I think these days it is. I sat down with a sheet of paper and I wrote down the talents I had, the skills I wanted to have, the things I never ever wanted to do again. And I wrote down this big list of bits and pieces, and in it all came out magic. And I thought, well, you know, entertaining people, I'm used to that because I've always been kind of theatrical anyway. And the family was fairly theatrical, and we always went to the cinema and theatres and lots of jokes in the family. So I thought, I've got that aspect to me anyway. I've got the skills for magic. So I thought, why not become professional? And I'd already been writing books by then anyway, because the writing of the books came earlier. And so it all seemed to be guiding towards this avenue of using magic. So performing, teaching, writing, doing the workshops, making videos and productions and so on. That's what it started naturally leading in that direction.
So at that point, had you done any magic? Like, had you done magic as a kid, or?
Yeah, I mean, I started the first time I got interested in magic was in the mid-60s. which was way before your time, Kitty.
Sorry about that.
Obviously. But yeah, in the mid-60s, when I was a young boy, excuse me taking my glasses on and off, I can see you, but I can't see I'm in between distances of the glass. Yeah, in the mid-60s, there used to be David Nixon on TV, and I used to watch him. And then my parents bought me a magic set, and then from the magic set, I took it further, and then I joined the local club, as I say, in 1976. So really, it's been part of my life since, for 50 years, you know.
Wow. So as a kid, you did magic as a hobby?
Yeah. Right through from, just at school, just tinkering around with magic, really. It didn't really start becoming very serious until I was about 13 or 14. That's when I took it to the next stage, and then I got more involved in it. And then, when I started doing shows for people in a serious way, not in a kind of entertaining the family and friends way, but I started doing serious shows when I was about 16. And I would entertain people in the theatre from behind the bar and the customers that were coming in with the kind of magic I do, which is close-up card magic. So, I've done it for a long time.
And how did magic make you feel? What was it that attracted you to it?
Well, my great uncle Reg, bless his cotton socks, I mean, he's been dead, I don't know, 45 years or more. When I was a small boy, he said, I'm going to show you something that you'll never forget. And with that, he took a coin, he blew on it, and it vanished. And I still remember that feeling, that wonderful feeling of awe and amazement and surprise and excitement. And that has stayed with me for 50 years. So I've always had that feeling. And when I try and perform, or when I perform rather, I try and make other people feel that wonderful, magical feel in themselves. Escapism.
Yeah, fantastic. So, so as a child, you learnt magic. Then as you're 16, it kind of got where you started, unprofessionally doing shows for other people. And then did you carry it on when you kind of went to work on the side?
Yeah, I mean, I just did it as and when I could while I was at work. And my first boss, who was a wonderful boss, he encouraged me to do it. So he said, come on, there's some people over there, show them something, show these people something, go over there. And I did some magic. In the environment I worked, this is in the early 80s, there was a bar. And I used to, eventually when I was 20, 21, I started working behind the bar. And I started doing magic behind the bar whilst I was serving people. And that set me up really well for entertainment later on, because you're dealing with all kinds of customers, from drunks to
skeptics.
I mean, you name it, every kind of customer you can think of, you meet working in the bar. Great experience.
Yeah, I can imagine. So no one asked you to do that. You just took it upon yourself to sort of entertain people when they were there.
Yeah, I just thought I'd get on with it and do it. And my first boss was very encouraging. Sadly, when I then moved to another theatre years later, the second boss was not remotely encouraging. In fact, I actually wrote to him once and I said, you were such a dreadful boss, so dismissive and so difficult. You actually inspired me inadvertently to become a successful professional entertainer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What, because his attitude was like he wanted you to fail, but you decided, actually, no, I'm going to make this work?
He was so, he couldn't encourage anybody for anything. He was just awful. But inadvertently, some people would just crumble by that. But I thought, well, you're doing me a favour here. You're giving me the motivation to get on with my life and do something much more.
Well, that's a great, empowering way to look at it, Paul. I don't know if everybody would have used that as motivation. They could have actually let it get to them. So I think...
Well, I mean, it did get to me a bit, but, eventually I thought, I'm not a glass half full person. So I thought, let's use this as a way of getting out of this rut and moving on. So
mid-20s, well, you were still working in theatres. And were you a member of the Magic Circle at this time?
Mid-20s, no, I wasn't. I think I joined when I was about 30 or something. I'll tell you a really interesting and a funny story. Can I tell you two funny stories?
Please do.
The first one is, they're both related. The first one is about fees and about earning money. Now, my father's best friend was Felix Bonas, and Felix was an actor and a comedian. And as an actor, a lot of people recognise him from Heidi High TV series, and also Are You Being Dad's Army, and roles in Dad's Army and Are You Being Disturbed. But he plays the jockey in Heidi High. He was also a warm-up man, a comedian. And a funny story happened when he was staying with my parents in the mid-70s. So over 40 years ago, the phone went. It was his agent saying, Felix, they'd like you to open Sainsbury's or Tesco's in Crawley. Would you go up there and open it? He said, well, no, I won't, because I'm on holiday with some friends. And he said, well, they're talking about £200. Now, £200 40 odd years ago for cutting a ribbon and saying a few jokes was pretty good money.
Yeah.
So he said to my dad, do you mind if I just drive up there and do this gig for an hour? And of course, there was no problem. So Felix then had to phone the manager of Sainsbury's or Tesco's or whatever it was to arrange it. And he phoned up, and the manager said, Mr. Bonas, thank you for agreeing to do this. And is £300 okay? So Felix, in a surprising way, went, how much? And the guy on the other phone thought he was insulting him. So he said, wait there a moment, I'll speak to my CEO. The phone went quiet, and a few minutes later he came back and said, well, the best we can go to is £1,000.
Wow.
Now that's like £10,000 now, I suppose, or more. And it was that story that started me thinking about, money's relative. It's some people will say £500 a lot. Some people will say £500 is beer money. So I then used that thought later on, becoming an entertainer. And then somewhere in the late 80s, I guess, I was on a business meeting when I was still had a proper job. I was in a business meeting up in Birmingham, and I was so fed up with the meeting. It was a dull get together, and I wasn't enjoying it. And I went downstairs to the bar area, and there was a bunch of American guys in one corner, and I started practicing some magic. And they called me over and said, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm here for a meeting, but I'm also a magician. He said, well, come and show us something. So I did, and I enjoyed it so much, and I entertained them for an hour or two. And at the end, they said, come on, fellas, let's give the guys some money as a thank you. And after protesting a bit, they stuffed a big roll of money in my hand, which I put in my pocket. Cut a long story short, the next day, I took out the roll of money and counted it, and it was around about 500 quid.
Nice.
And it was that moment I thought, 30 years ago, there's a living in this.
Wow, fantastic.
That's really how that started.
Well, that's fantastic because, a lot of people, you hit the nail on the head there, a lot of people who are doing something they're passionate about might not have the mindset that they can turn it into a living.
Yeah.
So it can be, and it's also our confidence, isn't it, about what we feel we can charge. That's the other thing that gets in people's way.
I know. And it is so many people start saying, I can't charge this. And, what if they say no, and all that kind of stuff. And I was actually going out with, I've been married twice. But before, I was going out with a girl, and she said, how much do you charge? And I told her. She said, that's not enough, double it. I said, I can't do that. So she said, next time somebody phones for a gig inquiry, double your fee. And I did, and it worked.
Yeah.
I doubled my income.
Yeah, it's so true, isn't it? And I think, if you actually put it out there in the universe about what you charge, then those people are attracted to you that can pay it.
Yeah. But some people actually think you are not very good if you charge too little. They won't book you because you're not charging enough.
Totally. Yeah. So at 30, you were made redundant from your theatre job.
Yeah.
And you sat down and wrote a pros and cons list, did you? Is that right?
That's right, yeah.
And then from there, you decided, because without being rude, as it is, I would imagine it was more difficult, I think. It's less accepted in those days to do something like magic as a career. I think, it wasn't necessarily as easy then, potentially, as it maybe is now.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's always been magicians entertaining at weddings and parties and corporate dues like I do. I think since the internet, there's more people who think they can do it. But I think the internet has bred an awful lot of people who think they can do anything, because everything seems a lot easier now with modern media and tuition on the internet and tuition, YouTube, and everything seems to be in too much of a rush. But I don't think you can beat the old-fashioned learning your craft slowly by honing it in through years of performance and so on. So I think in those days it was actually a little bit easier.
Okay. And what would you say to someone out there now who maybe does magic as a hobby? You know, it's one of your fans that's listening. So, and their mind is telling them, "Oh, I'd love to do that as a career, but actually have no idea where to start." What advice would you give them?
Well, one thing I would say to them, I do say to them because I teach them, is the world is full of, all of us can make excuses as to why we don't do things. And I've heard every excuse under the sun. And this is not meant to be harsh. It's just the truth. This is what people do. They start finding excuses as to why they can't become professional. For instance, older people will say, "Well, I can't because I've got a family at home and I can't give my job up." Or I'll wait till I'm 21. And then when they get to 21, they say, "I'll do it when I'm 25. Or I'll wait till I'm 30. It's like people who give up smoking. If you want to give up smoking, you give it up. Some people say, "I'll wait until next year and I'll get my birthday over and done with, or I'll wait until we come back from holiday." But in my opinion, the best way to do anything is to do it today, whilst the mindset is there. It's like this morning, my statements arrived, my accounts, and it's the kind of thing you put off. But I thought, no, just get on with it. Do it now. It's done. And I think it's the same with any endeavor. If you want to write a book, you need to start writing now and stop procrastination.
Yes.
Which is true. There's an old friend of mine, he says, procrastination is the thief of time.
Totally. Yeah. Totally.
People put off and they put off and they put off. And before you know it, you're too old and you're retired.
Well, this is it.
Yeah. If you want to follow your dreams, do it now. If you want to go to America and, I don't know, if you want to see the world, get on a plane and do it.
Yeah. Well, I think we touched on this before we started the interview, but it's amazing how many people, they don't necessarily think about what it is that they want in life. And like you said, you've got to design your life first about how you want it to look, and then every day take action towards creating that life.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I was at school. I used to just sort of bum around, messing about and telling jokes and dodging bullies and all that. I mean, I don't advocate this at all, but I think it's wonderful people get good education. But for some reason, when I was young, my parents took me to a boarding school. So from the age of 7 until 11, I was at the boarding school. For 5 years, I was away from home. And that's very tough when you're 7 years of age. And then that and put me into a comprehensive school. And so the change from boarding school to comprehensive school was like a sledgehammer to the mind. And so I came out of school with nothing, but I thought, now I've come out of school, let's start, get off your backside, Paul, and start making something of it.
Yes, I think it's difficult though, because I think we know now that you have to, if you want something in life, you've got to go and get it. You can't just expect it to fall in your lap.
Yeah.
But I think what I'm interested in is getting people to follow that voice in their head. The voice that says, "Oh, I wish I could be doing that," or "I love this, but I have no idea how to make it work."
I think it is terse advice. But I've got 3 stepchildren, 2 boys and 1 girl, and one of them he wanted to go around Australia. So I said, "Well, book a flight and do it."
Yeah.
I mean, give up your job and do it, or if you want to be a little bit more practical about it, keep your job for 6 months and save everything you earn put that money in savings for when you come back, go out to Australia and earn money, whatever it is you do, picking strawberries and other stuff, and go and do it. It's not easy, but what is.
You've got to draw a line in the sand and make a decision. So by the sounds of things, at 30, you made your list.
Yeah.
And you decided you were going to make a career out of magic.
Yeah.
And what happened next? Like, how did it progress from an idea to actually a reality?
Well, it coincided with me getting divorced from my first wife. And that was tough because I was trying to cope with moving house, getting divorced, being made redundant from my job, which was a mixture of being made redundant and me leaving, a bit complicated, but and then starting out the career as a professional entertainer. And I got very ill. I had a nervous breakdown at that time because of all the mix-ups. And my mum had just died as well, a couple of years before. So I was still getting over that. And then my dad got ill because my mum had died. So it was a pretty rough time. But I thought, well, sink or swim. I better, if I don't try and make this whole thing work, I'm going to go downhill pretty quickly.
So every day you start to do something towards?
Oh yeah, when I was actually very ill and I couldn't sleep and I was having sweats and panics and all sorts of things, I used to go onto my very old Windows computer. This is the early days of computer. And I used to write down plans which I would then put into fruition. And I can remember when Google started, because Google, I was there. I remember it just appeared and I got a free listing for life, which now I think probably cost you thousands and thousands of pounds. That free listing for life, by the way, I think they took it off a few years ago, but anyway. So I was constantly advertising and marketing and trying to find out where I work, how I could get work, what could I do. And also I used to bluff a lot as well because I remember...
Fake it till you make it.
That's it, isn't it? It's so true. I got a phone call from this guy saying, we want a magician for a trade show, really good money. Do you do much trade show work? I said, oh, all the time. It's my bread and butter. And I'd never done one. And I thought, well, I'll look into it. I'll just go and do it.
Brilliant. Oh, I think you've got to, haven't you? Turn it down.
As you say, what was your saying? Fake it
till you make it, yeah.
It's so true, isn't it?
Yeah, well, they say you've got to get, like you were saying about the money, getting the energy of it. You can command the energy that you want to put out there, and then it comes back to you. So fake that till you make it, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not a world to be timid in, is it? Really? You can't. I think if you hide your light under a bushel too much, you will always be in the background. And but my professional performance and my professional facade when I'm entertaining is so different from the way I am at home.
Yes.
And I'm happy with that because I'm actually quite quiet and private and semi-reclusive. I'm not reclusive, but as you know,
I
hang around town, going to coffee shops, people watching, talking to old friends, and that's the way I like it.
Yeah, so you created a life that works for you. I
think I've created two lives, really.
Well, it sounds like it because you've got your professional life, haven't you? You jet set around the world performing, and then you've got your home life.
Yes, and my wife now says there's about 10 Paul Gordons up here anyway.
So when you look back at that time in your life where, you said you're very open and you said that you had a bit of a breakdown and everything at the time didn't seem to be going the way you wanted it to be, what was it you learned from that experience?
I actually learned a lot. On a personal level, I learned to be a lot kinder, a lot nicer. I was quite bombastic when I was younger and a bit impatient and a bit I made assumptions about various things, and I wasn't a bad person, but I was also drinking too much in those days as well. So was all a little bit too, I was getting a bit aggressive with various things. And I learnt coming through the illness, I learnt how to relax and calm down and put into perspective what is important in life. And also made a decision then that I was going to work hard, but the work wasn't going to control me. I'm going to control the work. So I don't, thankfully, I mean, this is not a boast, but, I financially have done very well over the years, and I've saved a lot of money so that I don't have to schlep around the world if I don't want to. I now choose to. If I work, it's normally because I want to, not because I have to. And that's the advice I give people. Try and, this is tough advice, but I did it myself. When I got divorced from my first wife, I bought a very small 1-bedroom cottage, and I led a small lifestyle so that I didn't need to earn much money to pay the bills.
Yeah.
And I worked out, I thought, if I only do 1 gig a month, which in those days was like £300, if I only did 1 gig a month, I can just about afford to live. And I thought, if I can't get 1 gig a month, I might as well retire anyway. So, and I was, in the early days, I was doing 1 gig a month for about a year. And then eventually I was doing 2 or 3. And by the time I got to 5 or 10 gigs a month, I was earning, about 4 or 5 times the amount I was earning when I had a proper job,
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's
saving.
Yeah, very sensible advice, because I think when I coach people, I explain to them that they have to be able to cover their bases, really, because you can't manifest and create and pull in more money if you're worried about paying the bills. You can't design a life of freedom and of passion and purpose if you can't pay the bills, basically. So by keeping your overhead small, that enabled you mentally to free yourself up.
Yeah.
You could, without having any stress or pressure, you could pull in what you wanted to pull in.
I mean, I think on a sort of a global example of this, and a good analogy is that, these people, they win £1 million on the lottery.
Yes.
And the first thing they go and do is they go and buy themselves a £750,000 house, forgetting that a £750,000 house probably cost you about 30 grand a year to keep it going.
Yes.
And it's as simple as that,
Well, if you spend money, it's gone. You have to invest it, and then, spend the investment.
And you have to have I always say to everybody, I say to stepchildren, if you don't have savings, good savings, that will last you maybe 6 months. What happens if you are ill, especially self-employed? If you're ill for 2 or 3 months, or a series of things go, your car blows up and the fridge blows up and the cooker stops working. It's a good idea to earn and save as much as you can, so that you can then choose to retire when you want to, not when you have to.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how long from when you first decided to become a magician to, how long did it take for the business to start flowing in and actually, like you said, getting to a point where you could choose what gigs you were doing?
I probably a couple of years, I would say. I think it took. The first year was really bad, and I was panicking about what am I going to do, but I survived. The end of the second year, I think almost at the end of the second year, money, gigs were coming in fast and furious, and I'm not boasting, but I am a good entertainer, a good magician. So if you're good at what you do, often you don't have to advertise, because it's kind of cyclic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Word of mouth. If you entertain 100 people at a party, you'd like to think there's going to be at least 2 or 3 people there that might book you for another party, and on it goes.
Yeah.
So it's about 2 years before it started really working out.
2 years. And so now you lecture and write books and teach other magicians how to do things. Is that right?
I do, yeah. But I've been doing that a long time. I've been doing that I've been writing books for 30 years. I've been doing lectures for 27 or 28 years and teaching magicians for about 30 years. So I started doing that aspect of my work before I became a professional magician as an entertainer. And I've written 40 books on magic, which is
40.
40. 40. Wow. And they're big books as well.
I didn't know there was that much magic in the world. 40 books worth.
There's, I think somebody once said there's been more written about magic than there has about gardening and cookery put together.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I've got a library behind me here. There's thousands of books dotted around this house. And I think I've got about 2,500 books on magic. And I've read them all.
Wow.
I love them.
So what would you say to the budding magician? So they're just starting out. They just love magic, but they're doing it on the side. What advice would you give them?
Well, I mean, not everybody has to be a professional magician. You can do it as a hobby. So my advice would be is to, I think the best magic you can learn is from a book. If you're a young magician out there, I know it's tempting to go to YouTube and downloads and that kind of thing, but the best secrets are hidden within the books. So I would highly recommend going that route. Don't push yourself too fast. Don't burn out. And one day you may decide you might want to make it a hobby, but it doesn't have to, a profession. It doesn't have to be. But just work hard and treat it with respect.
Fantastic.
I mean, there are many more bits of advice, but we'd be here all day.
So what would you say to somebody who is wanting to follow their passion and purpose, it may not necessarily be magic, and they don't really know where to start?
Well, I think if you want to become, a professional cook, presumably you have to know how to cook to start with. But the main thing I always think is if the passion isn't there, then you're not going to be able to force it. So it's got to be something you're passionate about, something that you really love, something that you really want to do. So whatever it may be, you've got to have good business skills. You know this, Kitty, because as we both live in Worthing in Sussex, and I see shops opening up every other week, and I think they won't be there more than a month. Because I can tell it's an ill-advised, ill-conceived concept in the wrong place. I remember once, this going off at a slight tangent, in Worthing, a thong shop opened. And all they sold were women's thongs. And I thought...
Not even flip-flops, like in Australia.
Yeah, how many thongs do you have to sell to pay the rent on the property? And well, within a month, the place had closed down. So I guess with restaurants, restaurants, they have to open up where there's a good catchment of people, but also the food has to be excellent. And often it isn't. You go into a restaurant, either the food is bad or the staff are rude, and before you know it, the place is closed down. So in anything that you want to do in life, I think you have to be good at the basics, whatever it may be. So if you're going to be a cook, you've got to be a good cook. If you haven't got business skills, you need to learn business skills, which is something I did, and I learned mostly by osmosis through working in the theatre business. And I think you just have to really do an awful lot of homework, a bit like that housing program where they say, location, location, location. I think it's the same. So whatever it is you do in life, make sure you're passionate. Write down all the skills you need to have for it, get those skills, and then go to the next level.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So what you're saying is find something you're interested in and passionate about, but at the same time, you've got to have a sensible business model or sensible idea about how you can actually make it work in the world. You can't just, what you say.
No, I like go back to that thong shop. Who on earth thought they could make money out of selling thongs in a shop? And then the next error they made is that the person who was running the shop inside the shop was a man. And I don't think women want to buy their thongs from a bloke behind the counter. I may be wrong, but...
Yeah.
I mean, Kitty, where'd you buy your thongs from?
I don't know if I want to share that, thanks. Certainly not from that shop.
No. Well, thank you. It's not there anymore.
thank you so much for listening to Kitty Talks. Be sure to head over to our kittytalks.com website and become a member of our exclusive club, and you'll get free interviews and access to our private Facebook group, exclusive webinars and secret success interviews. See you there.